Imagine looking at the world and seeing it bend, expand, curve under the weight of light, time, and gravity. Not in a sci-fi movie, but in reality. Imagine that space isn't a static backdrop, but a canvas that moves and breathes with you. Imagine that time isn't a straight line, but a spring that stretches and compresses. This isn't a dream, it's what Albert Einstein saw. The man who revolutionized how we understand the universe without ever leaving his desk. The man who used a pen to bend the cosmos, and who once said, with the disarming simplicity only true visionaries possess, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination embraces the entire world. And no, that's not just a nice quote for motivational posters. It's a declaration of war against mediocre thinking. Because Einstein knew, you'll never change the world by following its rules. You only change it when you have the courage to see it differently. And if today you feel trapped by roles, expectations, habits, if you sense there's more out there but don't know how to reach it, maybe it's not intelligence you're lacking. Maybe it's perspective. How many times have you looked at a situation and thought, there's no way out? How many times have you told yourself, I'm not cut out for this? It's not the right time. It's too late. Einstein was a quiet kid, not impressive in school, considered slow. He didn't memorize facts. He didn't bow to convention. He asked questions. Uncomfortable ones, different ones, essential ones. And it was that gentle disobedience that made him free. Because he didn't want to learn the rules of the game, he wanted to understand who had written the game. Today, I'll take you there, into that mind. But not to talk about equations or numbers. I'll take you on a journey where science meets philosophy, where the laws of the universe become lessons for life. Because Einstein wasn't just a physicist. He was a rebel thinker, a poet of the mind, a visionary with his feet on the ground. And his ideas, even today, can shake the foundations of how you see things. They can help you be more creative, more focused, more free. Because maybe the problem today isn't that we know too little. It's that we imagine too little. And if you're passionate about the human mind, history, personal growth, and great thinkers who've left a deep mark, this is the place for you. Consider subscribing, because here it's not just about learning, it's about waking up. So now, let's begin. Who was Albert Einstein, really? Not the pop icon on t-shirts. Not just the genius sticking out his tongue, universal symbol of the quirky intellect. He was much more. He was a curious child, almost obsessed with the mysteries of the world. When he was just 5 years old, his father gave him a compass, a simple, everyday object. But to young Albert, it was a revelation. How could a needle move without being touched? What invisible force always pointed it north? That compass wasn't just a gift. It was his first encounter with the invisible mystery, with the magic hidden behind appearances. It was the seed of something that would grow throughout his life. Growing up, Einstein was never the perfect student. He didn't like authority. He couldn't stand rules imposed without reason. His teachers thought he was lazy, disobedient, even arrogant. He wasn't good at repeating, but he was extraordinary at questioning. When something didn't convince him, he didn't just accept it. He took it apart piece by piece, rebuilt it in his mind, tried to truly understand it. In a time that rewarded conformity, he was an outsider, but he was also a dreamer. He read Kant, Newton, Maxwell, and he imagined, what is time? What is light? What is space? School? For him, it was a cage that suffocated curiosity. So, at the first chance, he left. He moved to Switzerland, enrolled at the Polytechnic in Zurich, and after graduating, couldn't land an academic position. He ended up working at the patent office in Bern. A boring, anonymous job, far from the spotlight. But it was right there, among paperwork and inventions, that his mind caught fire. Every day after work, he'd dive into calculations, thoughts, reflections. It was 1905. He was 26. And that year, on his own, without labs, without funding, he wrote 4 scientific papers that would change our understanding of the universe forever. One of them included the now famous equation E equals mc squared. Another introduced the theory of special relativity. No one saw it coming. No one was ready. But the world could no longer ignore him. What followed was a meteoric rise: lectures, professorships, the Nobel Prize in 1921, not for relativity, interestingly, but for his work on the photoelectric effect, which laid the foundation for quantum physics. Einstein became a symbol, an authority. But he never forgot who he was, and he never stopped speaking out. When Hitler rose to power, Einstein, a Jew, a pacifist, a freethinker, recognized the danger and fled Germany. He emigrated to the United States. But it wasn't a passive exile. He used his fame to speak out, against war, against racism, against oppression. He defended civil rights, supported Martin Luther King, and was monitored by the FBI for his progressive ideas. He wasn't just a scientist. He was a man of ethics, of vision, of the courage to say no when the world shouted yes. And even in his final years, while fame had turned him into a near myth, he kept asking, what is time, really? Why does the universe exist? What is the role of human beings? He wasn't just looking for answers. He was seeking meaning. And that thirst for truth, that pursuit of what matters, is what makes him eternal. Because Einstein doesn't just belong to science, he belongs to anyone who has ever felt, even once in their life, that there's something bigger. To anyone who's had the courage to doubt. To anyone who's chosen to think for themselves. What are the core ideas of Albert Einstein's thinking? They go beyond formulas or theories. They're sparks, inner compasses, ideas that, if truly heard, can transform the way we see the world and ourselves. There are at least five keys. The first, reality is relative. And it's not just a physical concept, it's a deep, uncomfortable truth. Einstein discovered that time doesn't flow the same for everyone. 2 clocks in different places can tick differently. Space isn't rigid. It bends, curves, stretches. The speed of light is constant, but everything else is not. So, what does that mean for us? It means that what you perceive as absolute maybe isn't. Your truth isn't the only one. Your point of view is just one among many. It applies to conflict, relationships, snap judgments. Seeing through someone else's eyes, even for a moment, is already a revolutionary act. It's accepting that the world isn't as it is, but as we observe it. And changing your perspective changes everything. The second idea, imagination precedes innovation. Einstein said he didn't have any special talents, just passionate curiosity. He wasn't a scientist in a lab coat. He was a mental traveler. At age 12, he asked, "What would happen if I rode on a beam of light?" Sounds like a child's game. But from that question came the theory of relativity. Creativity for him wasn't just for artists. It was a scientific tool. A primal, explosive force that could break mental frameworks and let us see what others couldn't. In an age like ours, where we're flooded with information but starving for vision, Einstein reminds us that true power lies in the ability to imagine. Not always following the path already drawn, but sometimes drawing a new one. Third, simplicity is the signature of genius. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it well enough. That phrase should be hanging in every classroom, every company, every mind. Today, we often confuse complexity with intelligence. But Einstein tells us, no, true knowledge is clear, essential. It's like pure water, transparent, accessible, vital. Simplicity requires mastery. It means removing, not adding, distilling to the core. And in our complicated world, learning to simplify, a decision, an idea, a day, is an act of clarity. The fourth idea, science without ethics, is dangerous. Einstein wasn't blind to the consequences of his work. When he realized his discoveries could lead to weapons of mass destruction, he felt the weight of that responsibility. He didn't look away. He wrote to President Roosevelt, warning that Nazi Germany might be working on an atomic bomb. But after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he was devastated, and he dedicated the rest of his life to fighting for nuclear disarmament, peace, and international cooperation. He said, "Science can tell us how to do things, but not whether we should do them." And today, in the era of AI, genetic engineering, and unbridled technology, that thought is more relevant than ever. Knowledge is power, but without conscience, it's a weapon. The fifth idea: wonder is a form of wisdom. Einstein wasn't only rational, he was enchanted, awestruck. He said, "He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed." For him, science wasn't a job. It was a way to touch mystery, to connect with the infinite, with the hidden harmony of things. Even as an adult, he would be moved by the sky, by Mozart, by a single leaf. He kept a child's gaze in an adult world. And maybe that's true genius, not forgetting how to marvel, not letting routine, speed, or cynicism steal your wonder. Stopping, breathing, and remembering that everything, even the smallest thing, is a fragment of something greater. Within these 5 ideas lies a different way of living, an invitation to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. So how can we use this today in real life? Not as theory, but as daily practice. Start with doubt, but not the doubt that paralyzes, the doubt that opens. The kind that makes you take one breath before reacting, before judging, before assuming everything's already written. Einstein never accepted reality as it was. He questioned it, always. He asked, "What if it were different?" Try asking yourself that today. What if that criticism you received wasn't an attack, but an opportunity to grow? What if the problem weighing you down isn't a wall, but a turning point? Every time you feel stuck, in thought, at work, in a relationship, don't force it. Pause. Breathe. Einstein did this. He would step away from his calculations and go walking. For hours, in silence, with no destination. He said his best ideas didn't come at his desk, but in nature, in those empty spaces where intuition can rise. It was his anti-method. Today, we're so caught in doing, in being productive, that we don't leave room for intuition. But intuition needs silence, empty space, wasted time, which is never truly wasted. Try creating that space. Turn off your screen. Go outside. Grab a blank page. Doodle. Walk without a goal. Take a long shower. Play with ideas without needing the right answer. Then, simplify. When you're faced with a problem, don't rush into solving it. Stop and ask, how would I explain this to a child? It's not a silly trick. It's a mental challenge. Because when you can reduce something to its essence, you really understand it. Einstein knew clarity is power. And every time you simplify, you're reclaiming your clarity. You stop drowning in details and return to center. And don't forget, wonder. We live in times where everything must have a function, a result, an immediate purpose. But wonder can't be explained. It's something you feel. And when you lose it, you lose a part of your humanity. Einstein was amazed by the laws of the universe, but also by a leaf, a melody, a simple equation. He said mystery is the source of all art and science. So what if we too, each day, slowed down and looked around as if it were the first time? The face of someone you love, the night sky, the sound of silence. You don't need to go to Mars to feel awe. You just need attention. And finally, kindness, a word that sounds soft today, but it's actually powerful. Einstein practiced it in a world full of war and conflict. not just as an ethical principle, but as an active choice. He was kind even when it didn't pay, even when it would have been easier to close off. Because he knew, kindness isn't weakness, it's courage. It means responding to cynicism with presence, to hate with integrity, to haste with listening. So today, try it. Be curious where others judge. Be simple where everything's complicated. Be amazed where others are distracted. Be kind where it seems useless. And you'll discover that living with Einstein's mindset doesn't mean solving formulas. It means seeing the world with new eyes. It means refusing to settle for the ordinary. It means becoming every day a little more free. Why is Einstein still relevant today? Because in a world racing toward the future at unprecedented speed, we often lack the compass to understand where we're actually going. Artificial intelligence evolves every day, yet we're losing the ability to simply pause, look each other in the eye, and truly listen. We carry the universe of knowledge in our pockets, but often lack the capacity to turn that data into understanding, empathy, wisdom. In the midst of all this, Einstein is a voice that brings us back to what matters. He wasn't just a physicist, he was a thinker who blended logic and intuition, scientific rigor, and human compassion. He once said, "The problem of our time is not the atomic bomb, but the heart of man." And today, that sounds like a prophecy. We have the technologies to connect the world, but not always the maturity to use them wisely. We have algorithms predicting what we'll like, but not always the freedom to choose what will help us grow. Einstein reminds us that the mind must serve the conscience, that every discovery comes with an ethical question. Now that we know this, what do we do with it? It's easy to think progress is just about innovation, but he knew that real progress is internal. It's learning how to use power without being enslaved by ambition. It's staying curious even when you're an expert. It's keeping your sense of wonder alive, even when everyone around you seems numb. Einstein is relevant because he offers us a rare model, the humble genius. Someone who knows he doesn't know. Someone who seeks answers but isn't afraid of questions. In an age of loud opinions, he teaches us the value of quiet reflection. In a culture that rewards those who take, he celebrated those who give. The value of a man is not in what he's able to take, but in what he's able to give. That sentence should be engraved on the doors of every school, every company, every home. Because in the end, what remains isn't what you've collected, but what you've inspired. Einstein is with us every time we choose curiosity over resignation. Every time we choose to understand rather than judge. Every time we remember that thought is a sacred tool, to be used with lightness, but also with responsibility. And that's his legacy. Not just formulas or Nobel Prizes, but a way of being in the world. A way that now, more than ever, we need to rediscover. So what does Einstein truly leave us with? A challenge, an invitation, to think more, to imagine better, to live with curious eyes and a critical spirit, to stop settling for ready-made answers, to stay in love with the mystery. Because in a world where everyone seems to be rushing towards something, Einstein invites us to stop, to look inward, to ask the right questions, not the ones that seek approval, but the ones that dig deeper, the ones that free us, the ones that make you look up at the same sky and see it differently. Next time you feel lost, stuck, or limited, ask yourself, am I looking deep enough? Am I imagining big enough? Or am I just following a path someone else drew for me? Remember, you don't need to be a physicist to live like Einstein. You need the courage to open your mind, even when it's scary. You need the curiosity of a child and the discipline of an adult. You need the humility to recognize your limits and the strength to push beyond them. Because, as he said, the mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. And the moment you choose to open it, everything changes. You're no longer a spectator. You become an explorer. If this journey inspired you, if it made you think or feel, or simply pause, share it. Don't keep the spark to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Tell us which brilliant mind you'd like to explore next. Because the great minds of history aren't just figures of the past. They're companions on the journey, beacons guiding us through our darkest nights. And we're here to follow their path, to rediscover, together, the power of thinking big. Until next time.